Oh, good. I almost hit end stream. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Glad
Hello.
to see us all back. I think we maybe missed. Did we miss a month?
Yeah,
At
June.
least.
I was going to say, did we miss March? So that tells you,
No,
that tells you everything.
we may
So
also have missed March,
we could have. I don't
but
know.
our last
We've been
miss was
some,
June.
yeah, we've been some busy data people. That is for sure. So, hey, welcome everybody online. We're excited about this conversation and always excited to be together as a group. And we have Data with Serena here with us today, and we look forward to diving into talking about data and people and AI. Tell us where you're coming from. So drop in the comments where you're at, and thanks for being with us today. Let's just do I hate to say round robin since my name is Robin and we don't want to be round, but let's do a round robin and introduce ourselves. And I'll start with Bill Shander since he muted himself. Worst possible timing. We'll just let Bill
Perfect.
Shander recover and then kick us off on
Hi,
introduction.
I'm Bill, and I'm thirsty, and I'm coughing a little bit too, so it's perfect timing. Uh, yes, I am Bill Shander. I am a LinkedIn learning instructor. I talk about data storytelling, data visualization, and a whole bunch of related topics. I always love having these not so much monthly these days, but usually monthly conversations with Robin and Ginny and our extra special guests. So yeah, I'm excited to be here to talk about AI, about which I know next to nothing, which will be really fun.
It's awesome. Jenny, tell everybody about you.
Oh, sure. I'm Ginny Von Quarter. I'm a LinkedIn learning author across mostly in the Microsoft space, including Power BI, but also products like Teams and Excel and Outlook and things like that. And I'm just here to provide local color. I'm in Michigan this morning in my office.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So I'm Robin Hunt, also LinkedIn learning author and content provider in and around data. And I don't know, I also work with data regularly, talking about it, teaching it, working with it, and mining it. So I'm excited for today's conversation and definitely excited to welcome Dr. Serena Huang back to Data Fundamentals Unpacked. We had her previously, and we discussed people analytics, and it was a great episode. And I hate Jenny missed that episode. I think you may have been out that particular one, but it was great to have her. And recently, we ended up not at the same event, but in the same area of the United States, and we're able to get together and meet in real life, which was always fun to do that and be able to build our friendship and relationship and build out into the data community. So I'm excited to have you. Tell everybody about you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. And I'm glad that Ginny, you're able to join us this time. Dr. Serena Huang, founder and CEO of Data with Serena. For those of you who didn't know, my company name actually started as a hashtag about 2 years ago. I was, coming out of COVID, starting to get back to doing speaking engagements. And so I thought I wanted to chat with real humans when I get back out there. So I posted, this is where I'm going to be. So come chat data with Serena. So I turned that into a hashtag and started to make new friends when I was on the road. And a few months later, I founded my company called Data with Serena. So far, it's been a great journey. About a little over a year in, very fresh entrepreneur, and Robin and I definitely bonded over some of the difficulties of being an entrepreneur, the real struggles that that we don't always share, and just appreciate being here. I of course am a LinkedIn learning instructor as well, so I did a little bit of math. Bill, I don't know if you have your number, but I think between all of us, we have educated over 7.5 million learners.
It's amazing.
Possibly more. So
Yeah.
it's hard to tease out the unique learners. So we'll have to do some more deduping on that. So we'll see. We'll come back with a real number at some point.
Well, I see Steve Weiss is here. Like
Oh, there we go. Yes.
We'll
So
say,
we
hey,
can
Steve.
also
Like Steve
learning friends.
Steve loves to hear that we need more data conversation. So
Yeah.
Steve, we love you. You have basically one of your whole crews here
Absolutely.
together online. So
Yes. Yeah.
all right. Well, we came together. We geographically ended up close, and I said, hey, we're having Data Fundamentals Unpacked. It'd be great to have you come back, and we kind of voted us to talk about data, AI, and people, and maybe not in those orders, but kind of what made me think about it is I think you may have been coming to talk about AI. I was on a panel that was billed as data and AI, and it was a Department of Defense security event. I was so grateful to be asked to be there, and I was talking about CompTIA Data Plus, and the interesting things that I get to learn in scenarios like that. Being a data person in a security event is all of the data that's revolving and evolving around in the security space, and AI was all over that conference, right? It's like everywhere you look is something for AI. And so when they put me on the panel, I was like, can I go first? Just let me be first, please. Again, as a educator, my goal is to bring data to people so that they can grow up and be data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, or just data workers. Like, I don't really care. I feel like everybody needs data skills of some form. So I got up there feeling a little bit like, am I going to be irrelevant all of a sudden due to AI? And it's hard to say things like that as a professional, but like, I think a lot of people in the world are thinking these things like, how does this impact? Or, well, first of all, you should be thinking things like, how does this impact my future skills and job roles? I think that's important. I think just oftentimes we don't think people like me would think like that. I think like that. But I am happy to report, after presenting with such an all-star group, that I feel like everything that I presented fit really nicely with them, as they talked about AI and security and using data and AI against attacks. Everything that we do at the fundamental level still was applicable, right? It hadn't really changed. It's made me realize maybe the way we do things might change, but that core concept, those core fundamentals, they're going to remain the same. I think we should open there, and I'll pitch it to Serena to kind of talk about what all have you seen? You've been out speaking gigs on data and AI and all sorts of things. What are you seeing out there in the world that's making you think and piquing your interest?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, there's no longer an event that I go to that doesn't have AI all over it. From the moment I land, even at the airport, everything that you can see is now powered by AI. All the ads, commercials, right? It used to be just on the West Coast, maybe in New York. Now it's every single, even small airports. We're all powered by AI. So it's everywhere. And I think what you are describing is very real. A lot of people I've talked to, from junior analysts all the way to CEOs, are thinking about how AI is going to change the world. In particular, how is it going to change what we do, how we do our job? I'd love to do a poll with a few people who have joined so far. Tell us if AI has impacted, changed in some shape or form of how you are doing your job. Yes or no? Just yes or no.
Oh, yeah.
Any aspect of your job.
Yeah. So if you're in the audience, yeah, you're wanting them in the comments, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that showed up initially, starting probably a year and a half ago now, is the topic of automation, right? As one application of AI. Automation. How do we increase efficiency, improve productivity for production for employees individually. And I think at the time it was more at the scale of a large organization, right? And how can we increase efficiency and so on. But now it's gotten to a point because AI is so accessible to everyone, right? You don't have to learn to code to use AI anymore. That's a fundamental difference. The UI is so user-friendly that without any experience, you can talk to it in plain language. That's the difference. So I think that barrier to using AI has disappeared compared to several years ago, and now it's in everyone's hands. So top leaders I've talked to, the more senior people are asking questions around how can I change. How can I be more productive? How can I engage my workforce? How can I think about the future for us? And I was recently in Hong Kong, and one of the most interesting conversations I had was these very forward-thinking executives were telling me, like, forget about the small productivity boosts, like how to write your email better, how to do Excel if you don't know Excel. I don't care about that. Are there ways that I can fundamentally change my business model and quadruple my profit? Now you got my interest. So I don't know the answer to that. I think there's absolutely a way. But if you look at some of the external studies, productivity boost and GDP increase as a result of AI, the estimates are fairly modest, actually. So they're not not quadrupling anything for sure. And some of the estimates on the low end are 0.5% to 1% maybe. That's a small boost. On the higher end, I've seen things like 5 to 6%. Now, 5 to 6% increase in GDP for a large country like a US, for example, that is huge. Where is that going? Where is it coming from? And how does that impact the way we do our jobs? I think that's on everyone's mind. So if you're managing an organization, you're probably thinking about how can I leverage that? And if you are working, then you're probably wondering, how can I keep myself relevant, to use, Robin, your word? At the end of the day, so I'm curious what people are saying, yes or no. Can anyone see that?
We can see, like,
Yes.
sometimes they're delayed. I see a couple
Okay.
in there.
We have some yeses, it seems like. Yeah, so if you were to extrapolate that further, we can imagine the impact will be even greater.
Yes.
And so I don't love the question around, will AI impact or take my job away? That's probably one of my least favorite questions.
Yeah, like, I don't like that
Because
either.
it's so black and white. It's so black and white. It's either yes or no, it will take my job away or not. What we know is AI has gotten really good at doing certain tasks. AI has some skills that we also have, but maybe we're not as efficient and fast. So AI is probably in short term going to replace some of the things that you do in your role. What percentage? TBD, depending on what you do, of course.
Yeah.
If you are very hands-on, like a plumber, probably not as much. If you are coding, right, engineers and so on, that's a different story.
So hold on. I want to pull back before we go any further, because you say so much, it's made my brain just explode and want to talk about it. But, like, I want to step back to a previous comment you made. You said in and around automating processes and like, how do you get me 4 times, where I'm at? And I love that, because we've been saying, hey, like, you could leverage data modeling, design techniques to quadruple your, and it's like, well, now you're asking, how are you going to get, and I would argue, like, return to the fundamentals so you can figure out where you're at so that you can leverage AI. So to me, it really, your starting point still hasn't changed if you want to actually increase your production. It's just how you might increase your production with tools.
Right.
Has maybe changed.
Absolutely. Yes. And you can't have AI without data. You cannot possibly have AI without data.
Can somebody quote that? You cannot have AI without data.
So your starting point is still data.
Yeah.
Well, or someone's starting point was data.
Yes.
right? I mean,
Right.
as a user of a tool like ChatGPT, I don't need to start with a bunch of my own data. That's essentially being provided for me.
Fair
But
enough.
somewhere there's data,
Yep.
right? And at the organizational level, if I want to do something real in my organization, I have to figure out how to get my data in shape for AI, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah, getting data in shape used to be a tedious task. And if I may also say boring, it was not something I ever enjoyed. The cleaning part, right? I want to get to the clean data. So that's now much easier with AI. And I am really hopeful that we'll eventually get to a place where we're doing things that really fuel us, right? That lift us up, and not the tedious tasks that really drain us. And that's how people get burned out, right? It's one of the reasons is you keep doing these things that that you don't love, and that you think could be easier. So yeah, I think, Robin, that I'm also very focused on well-being as a person, and I think about how AI can help with our well-being as well.
Now, I think that's important. Like when you have someone doing a task, and again, to me, automation, who cares? Like, well, I don't care what the automation is powered by. When you automate a task for someone that they don't really need to be doing, you're giving them space to do what they're meant to do. Like they're doing data entry so that they can turn around and do the job that you gave them.
Yes.
So if you could automate the flow of data to them, then they can put all of their attention onto what they're supposed to do with the data, not just getting the data into, right. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love a spreadsheet, but like we don't need a million spreadsheets with the same data sets over and over and over again. Like there's like we could automate that a long time ago with, really terrible automation tools. So like you should have already been past that point. I think it makes me interested to watch like how many people think that AI and the development of tools around AI are going to replace bad practices of not paying attention to where your data's at, having a governance plan, like, those things have not, again, like those things have not changed. They're still very relevant today.
Right. Man, the governance of AI is something that a lot of organizations have reached out and talked to me about. And it's in my mind, there's a really simple answer to that. You have to, if you want to govern your AI, you have to govern your data. So if you can't govern your data, you're not going to be able to govern your AI.
How popular are you with that? I mean, some people are like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Some people are probably looking at you like you have a horn coming out of your head. They're like, no, I want to talk about AI governance. I don't want to talk about data governance. There's just such a
yes.
Yep.
It is all the same thing. Right. Fascinating.
No, yeah. So of course, to be fair, governing the AI model, what it's predicting, all of that behavior, if it's making recommendations, yes, that's a separate topic for sure. Yes. But fundamentally, you do have to think about the governance of data and what goes in it in the first place. So I think a lot of companies are, that just sounds so painful. And for a long time, it's like one of the less sexy topics, right, in data. Yeah. But it's so needed now with AI that I don't think you can start talking about AI governance without data governance.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that assessment. Let's lighten it up for just a second, though, and then maybe we have time to go back to the whole plumbers using AI because I want to talk about that. But we had an earlier conversation, again, like we get to be in community with each other. We had an earlier conversation about the business case of bringing your Otter AI to the meeting. And again, like we like we try to keep it practical around here, and we want people when they come to engage with us, we want you to have some good takeaways. And I thought this was a fun conversation for us to have, because I'm just going to go ahead and tell you where I stand on the whole Otter AI. And I don't really care. Otter is just what I'm saying. Like, who cares what it is? But like, I don't want someone coming in and turning on an Otter or some AI generate without having a discussion with me 1st. Like, I'm not necessarily signed up to have you record everything I say. Like, we should have a conversation about that before it gets turned on. So I find myself going, no, you're not in there. But Gini does have a use case, and so does Serena. So I want to unpack it.
And so does Bill. I mean, so there's the thing. So consent is an important piece. So what Robin's saying, if you don't know what Otter AI is, imagine that you're in an online meeting, and one of the participants has simply pointed their AI engine at the meeting, and it is capturing the content, and will give them, and with the people I work with, they'll usually send a link to it that says, if you want meeting notes afterwards that have been generated for me, here they are.
Right.
And the question is, you know, do we want to have that show up? And I'll say something, Robin, that you said earlier. You might be in a meeting where the stuff being discussed either shouldn't be recorded to begin with, or if it is, it should be discoverable later through e-discovery. Right. So the questions of how you're governing the use of those kinds of tools within the enterprise. But Bill actually has been using it for a really specific purpose, and it's been helpful. So Bill, give it a shot.
Yeah. So I'm writing a book, and I'm interviewing people for the book, and I could sit there and take notes on my laptop or on my little tablet here, my handwritten notes, and I wouldn't be able to read it afterwards, and I'd get every quote wrong, and I would just make up quotes in my head that I thought that they said because I didn't write it down in time, et cetera, et cetera. Or I can put Otter in that meeting, and it's going to transcribe the whole meeting for me. But, you know, to the point, I ask permission. I mean, you know, like when you turn on recording in Zoom, it says you're being recorded right now, and you have to say, okay. And there's no way to say no, thank you, but, you know, at least you're informed.
Yes.
I certainly request permission of people before I bring in the AI for the transcription. But, you know, the funny thing is that, you know, in Zoom, you have to, you know, acknowledge that you're recording it, but I could also take that recording and send it to AI after the fact and get that transcription done. So either way, it's going to happen if the meeting's recorded, but it's the same principle. It's like, if you're going to record somebody, which is what that is, you got to ask permission, but transcription is like the easiest, quickest use case because it actually works. It's not perfect, but it works pretty darn well.
Yeah, like I get it. I just get it. I just know I sit and it's just like not every meeting I go to is really like, it's not up for recording.
Right.
Because it's just not appropriate for it. Right. And, you know, sometimes people, when they're talking about their data, need an open space to be able to talk about it while we're working through context, so that anything that got out would not be taken out of context, you know? So,
well,
again, it's that consent thing that really kind of gets me.
And
but we're all dealing with it.
And the other thing that happens is that if you're in a meeting with a number of people, say 8 or 9, 10 people, anybody that isn't on video gets dropped to the bottom of the list. So it's easily possible to join a meeting and never know unless you scroll this is one of my new habits. When I join a large meeting, I scroll all the way to the bottom. Are there any agents running in this meeting? Just so I know, because especially if it's not being recorded. If it's being recorded, fine, it's being recorded. But if it's not, I want to know. And it's really easy, and that's just because of that default setting that says, if they don't look interesting, throw them to the bottom of the pile. You know, if they've got nothing for us here.
So Serena had an amazing, and I think depending on what you do and who you serve, like this is a very practical application, like what Bill suggested with, you know, you're interviewing people. That is an amazing, absolute use case for that. And I love Serena. So Serena, share your
just a little bit of reaction too. I agree. The consent piece is so important, and it doesn't matter if it's AI or not. Recording in general, essentially, you know, you can't do it without everyone's consent. So I'll just get that out of the way. And then for AI to analyze it, the capability of those summaries it's decent depending on the context, depending on how how many people are talking at once. So like the one-on-one situation, it does a decent job if it's a fairly general topic. If it's something very specific, and likely meaning the AI didn't have a lot of training data on, it's going to get confused and probably summarize it incorrectly. So my general recommendation is only use it if you're actually going to be in the meeting. So do not send right now. Just given the capability, again, tomorrow it might change. Don't send an AI agent on your behalf to attend a meeting and expect to not miss anything. Right? You can send it and maybe you'll get 70%. I don't know. That's maybe good enough for you. But if that's not good enough, then you have to be there to be able to validate the summary afterwards and correct as necessary. So I think that's the part that is missing in a lot of recommendations I see. There's just so much hype of you don't need to go to meetings anymore. And like I remember one day I had so many meetings on my calendar. I ended up having I was triple booked in a 30-minute slot. Okay, so pre-Gen AI. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? They're all really critical. Should I send someone on my team to do this? So I decided, nope, it was too important. I had to be there. And so what I did was I told each of the organizers that this is a 10-minute slot I can be in out of the 30. Please make sure whatever I need to, give recommendation, decide, or give feedback on is happening in those 10 minutes. So I could go to 3 meetings at once. Now, and I'm thinking, would I have sent AI agents to those meetings and summarize and represent me? Probably not. It was too important for me to hear what everyone else is saying and the full context. I wouldn't necessarily trust someone else, whether it's a human or AI, to do that. And that's why I make the call to be there for 10 minutes. Now, so I think, put yourself in those real life situations and think about what you would do. Now back to my use case, I was recently in Hong Kong, where they speak both Mandarin Chinese and Cantonese. So I speak multiple languages, and Mandarin Chinese is one of them. And we're having this meeting discussion around AI and ML. So it was, we got to a point where both were just feeling more comfortable, and I was more comfortable talking about AI and ML in English at the time, and my client was more comfortable talking about it in Mandarin Chinese. So we decided to use it wasn't all, there was some other AI to record the meeting and summarize it and create bullet points and to-do list afterwards for people. So it's like a project manager on steroids that are perfectly bilingual as well. So I was shocked and amazed by the capability of, this AI is able to understand both languages at such a sophisticated level. We're talking about, business and technology terms, and was able to translate and then not understand, but summarize, and then create to do, sort of action items at the end as well that were accurate. Now, can you think of a human to replace that? Possibly, yeah, sure. I could have hired an interpreter who can speak both Mandarin Chinese and English. But at the level of, that business English and the technology terms like AI and ML and different machine learning models, probably not. That's going to be really hard to find. So the AI summary I'd say it was probably like 85% to 90% there. And we had to do some tweaks. It was missing the context. But it was so easy too, because for me, there were some words that I didn't necessarily know in Mandarin Chinese. So it was helpful for me to confirm my understanding. And
that's awesome.
Well. So, I think about the ability of AI like this that allows us to work globally and cross-culturally in ways that we haven't before. That's incredible. Like I don't have to spend 2 years learning a language to get only okay at it, but I can now do it today. I can go to a country and travel to somewhere where I don't speak the language and understand the menu, for example. Like that's a big deal. Those
I
are
agree. Yeah.
cases.
You know what?
And yeah, so we're like borderless at this point with AI.
You know what's amazing about all of these scenarios is it actually proves the point that for a good long time, AI does not replace humans, because what if we only sent Otter AI to the meeting? What if everybody who showed up for the meeting was just their AI agent? That wouldn't be a very productive meeting, right? So, in fact, I look forward to the day that I hear someone say, no one showed up for the meeting, it was all Otter. But, the
We
humans
need to
have to be
create a
there.
post about that. You just created a viral meme.
The humans have to be there to have the conversation, to be recorded, to be summarized, to be whatever. Although you can also continue to extrapolate the idea, and eventually it is Terminator, right? Because eventually they're just doing everything and we truly are unnecessary. But I guess at that point, who cares?
Well, I hope, I'm just, again, like, I'm just seeing all the Otter AI show up in a Zoom room is just a hilarious picture, but you're so true, right? And another underlying thing or a word that keeps popping out in all of our discussion is context.
Yes.
Like, AI is not like a living, feeling human empath, whatever, giving you context. It's regurgitating. And I'm not suggesting it's not a great regurgitation of information. It is fantastic. Like, I'm 100% for it. Tell me all about it, but it cannot be done alone. It's got to have that interaction with it to validate it. And
Right. It's the key is in the validation. And if if there's a skill that has increased in value recently, it's definitely critical thinking. I think critical thinking is really important. It was always important, but now with AI generated information, we're like in an era of misinformation now, it seems like.
Yes.
So how can you know what's real and what's not real? Even the news, right? Like before we really had fake news. Now we had deep fakes going to video conversations and tricking people into giving them money. These are real problems with AI that I don't think we dreamed of even just 5 years ago.
Well, I think there's some serious positives coming too. Like, again, like, I love the fact that, even though I'm going into these security conferences to talk about data, like, the impact of you take experienced security people and you give them tools that can rapidly deal with data for them to make, like, they need to be able to make decisions in matters of seconds at some point. You know what I mean? Like, they can't mine that data fast enough, like the business intelligence person in the back office. Like, they have to have the ability to run super powered machines, tons of, like, not even fun data. It's like login data, right? It's like log data. This is not like security data is not sexy data, but it is like the most critical lifeblood data to protect us. And then that back to the people part, right? Like, every system needs and has people involved in it. So I think, I do get excited about security professionals having tools that are being built on AI. Like, I love that idea. I don't like Otter in my Zoom meeting.
Tell us how you really feel, Robin.
Yeah. Like, I see
Picking
it
up
and
a
say
subtle
no. Like, I'm
cue
like,
here.
you brought your
It's
Otter
very
to the
subtle,
party.
yes.
I didn't agree to that. Like,
Yeah, I'm if there's a theme we take away,
don't send Otter to Robin's meetings.
well, I actually want to say something that has little to do with AI, perhaps, but perhaps it will have it'll be different in the future. But Serena, I want to really thank you for a course of yours I've recommended several times on the data analytics of diversity and inclusion and well-being, because I keep coming up against people when I'm working with organizations who tell me about the things they can't measure.
Oh
Oh,
my God.
that's too hard to measure. And it doesn't have to be this, but this is it right now in my geography as a hotspot is, oh, that stuff's just too hard to measure. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's not. Take this course, then come back and talk to me and tell me how hard it is.
Yes.
But
Oh my gosh.
but it's been transformational for several organizations who have gone in saying we really don't have a way to measure. And
That's
it's like,
amazing. Okay, so how many came back and said we still cannot measure it?
well, if they still can't measure it, they're not going to call me back.
Yeah, I was just to say they
Well,
don't.
I mean, I don't know.
You know, I see them around town, you know, and like they hide behind their beer mug or whatever.
Okay.
But it's been like people have said, wow, that was really helpful. That's really great because I do a lot of work in the not-for-profit universe. And that's a place where it's always been data poor.
Yes.
Right. And the data they do have tends not to be that well analyzed, but they're also not great at keeping track of the data they should keep track of. So it's like, we can't possibly, you know, measure this. And it's like, no, you'd actually have to capture some data first.
Right.
You know, but if you have somebody go back through your stack of, you know, everybody who you've ever interviewed or everybody who's ever applied. You do have that stuff. It's just on paper, and in the future you need to track that in a better way, right? But I wanted to thank you for that, and I wonder, is there a piece that AI brings to that when you look at that course the next time around?
Yeah, for sure. Great idea. So that's how you got to like 200 courses, huh?
No.
Yes.
No, it's Word over and over again. But go ahead.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. That's hilarious.
I think the two dimensions that people really struggle to measure the most, and what you just mentioned, is inclusion and well-being for employees. So inclusion, well, it's really hard to measure inclusion, but think about the last time you felt excluded from a work situation and professionally, maybe even in a family. You feel like you should have been invited to a conversation, but you were not, right? Maybe you should have been asked to provide input on something that impacted you, but you were not. You felt excluded. Now, how do you translate into, well, how excluded did you feel, or how included do you feel? Where you can ask questions via surveys and so on, and then AI can analyze those surveys, of course. But now there is a lot more options on, you know, sort of, well, let's take a look at that real data of who showed up to the meeting. Let's see who this manager, who the host invited to the meeting, right? Is it only people in their area? Is it only people in your group? Or is it more inclusive of everyone who needed to provide input? Is it cross-functional? Those are all data points that already existed, you know, in your systems for years, for decades even.
Right.
So you can take a look at that. You know, are they making assumptions that, well, Robin, you're in a different time zone, it's too late in the day, I'm trying to look out for your well-being, so I didn't invite you to the meeting? But you know, well-intended, but ended up being not inclusive. So those are data points that we now have because of the collaboration data that organizations have started to mine. And now that connects to well-being in a very realistic way, right? So think about how many hours you spend on your laptop. How do you all track your screen time on your phone?
I'm not admitting anything.
Okay. So right. So let's say, you know, you have a team that works with teams in other locations. That means they might have to occasionally jump on a call. It's late at night for them or super early in the morning. Okay, well, that's fine if it's once a month or maybe even once a week. But when it becomes repeated and daily, right, let's say I collaborate with a team in India, right? That is 10 and a half hours apart from my location. That's really challenging. What if it's Australia? Oh my God, that's like one of the most challenging time zones, right? So either someone has to be super early caffeinated or super late and caffeinated. I don't know how else you make this work. But again, once in a while it's okay, but the frequency, if you look at it over the course of 3 months, 6 months, and you have individuals on the team that's spending significant amount of time where they should be sleeping, but they're on collaboration, emails, calls, and chat, it's probably not great for their well-being long term.
Yeah.
So those are all measurable data. Now, how do you quantify well-being? I could ask you a question. How are you feeling? Scale 1 to 10. You can tell me that. How stressed are you feeling? You can also tell me that. But that changes from time to time, right? Throughout the day, you have different responses to that question. I'm probably not going to ask you 20 times a day, right? You're going to be super annoyed. So what are other ways that we can tell, right? A lot of organizations have started to think about burnout as an issue that needs to be tackled. So are there burnout signals that we can maybe tell? So it's passive data, right? Instead of actively asking you to tell me, instead of actively collecting the data, it's data that already exists. So for example, maybe we take the AI to the next level. And now this AI in the meeting is now analyzing your words, the sentiment. Perhaps you have recently, started to feel less engaged or less interested. You used to contribute a lot. Now you contribute very little. Okay, that's quantity. We can easily tell how much you talk on the meeting, maybe in the chat, maybe in your reactions, maybe even if you show up to the meeting at all, right? But what if we even take it further and say, okay, we're now analyzing your facial expressions. Now you seem angry or sad, as opposed to before you were really happy and excited, or maybe just neutral. So that kind of shift can be very indicative of something changing with you as a person. It may not be caused by work. It may be caused by other things happening in your life, right? We're a holistic person. We don't just work. And so that's, maybe let's say, well, now we tell the manager, hey, Serena seems a little stressed, maybe acting a little differently. Have you had a conversation with her recently? Imagine that's a nudge that AI now gives you. Would you as a manager check in on me? Well, hopefully the answer is yes, or maybe, find time. Send me a quick text and say, hey, can we catch up over Zoom or over coffee quickly? Just want to make sure, things are going well. And those are all signals that we now have because, and we can now analyze quickly because of AI. So I'm very optimistic about the opportunities ahead for both DEI and well-being, not just being measurable, but actually improved for organizations at scale. I just think there's so much fear and unknown with it too, and of course these things are the AI that I described exists, but it's not free. So
that's another thing too.
Consent.
Yeah. So
consent and privacy concerns.
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking, Bill, I had this mental map right now that over at the top of each of our little screens, there's a little indicator that's how AI is judging your health and engagement at this moment. And it's like
Robin's going to lose her mind. Otter's in every meeting, not only there to take notes, but now to tell her how that she's not smiling enough.
Like now you're reading my facial expressions. Like, I just, there's just so, again, when we talk about bias and ethics and consent, and people look at us like, why are you so bent about that? It's like, because it's like, okay, first of all, those signals are critical. And like, if you care about your team, like you're looking for those signals already. But like, I work with people all the time that could care less about signals of the people. Their ideas, just get it done. And so like, we have to like speak it out. Like some people's position is going to be, I care, but I'm not going to go invest X number of capital budget. So that you can tell me that so-and-so's having a bad time because I need the company to make X, Y, Z. And, like people are going to like break that apart and try to come at it 100 million ways to avoid it. So like, where is the middle, and does the middle exist yet for us to have a little bit of both?
Well, and like I think from like the employee standpoint, I simultaneously appreciate that you do care if you do. Thank you. And I love the technology
Right.
can help. Serena, what you're saying is great. Like there's optimism to that. And I also don't freaking trust you guys. Like
Yes.
seriously, you're going to have an auditor in every meeting. And so, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if there can be a middle. How
know.
could there be
This
a
is a-
middle?
Interesting
I-
concept.
Isn't there like a basic question about, do you work for a company that values people as a resource and is investing in people, in which case trust usually goes up? Are you in a company that actually sees people as fairly easily replaceable? And so it's like when
Right.
AI says, you know, it seems like Serena's having a problem. You know, I've had managers who would have just knocked on my door and said, "Hey, AI says you're messed up. What's going on?" And it's
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's that too. And if you work for that company, there's not a lot that can be said that increases trust. We have a leadership problem, right? Or a way in
Right.
which employees are valued. But I have worked in places that I think there's not an ongoing continual suspicion.
Yeah. But even like these days, you know, your company where you trust the leadership, next week they might sell to private equity. You know, like
That's
next
right.
week things change.
Oh,
And like
absolutely.
and then you know, we talked about
Absolutely.
e-discovery earlier. Now like there's this
Yeah.
permanent record that I was grumpy for about a month in 2007. You know, like
I'd like it.
I don't
read
know
my,
if I really want that out
like
there.
the anger
Yeah.
scale in my
Yeah.
face on the Zoom meeting is like, you know, how red is her
Right.
face right now? Yeah.
Yeah. No, trust is at the core of this, right? I think, you know, and previously stood up councils when large corporations on ethics, like employee data ethics. And I'll give you just kind of describe what's on the council. So of course we got like chief data officer, I had the CIO on there. I am there because I lead people analytics, and then you might have, you know, some other compliance related expertise on there. But essentially, you need to decide as an organization first how you are going to use the data, whether it's actively collected through surveys or passively collected already, like in Outlook. How are you going to use it? Will you use it for purpose of making managers better, making people happier? Or what are you going to do when you find out not so nice things about people, right? That perhaps there's something going on that you didn't expect to uncover. Right? This happens all the time in people data. Actually, you know, you expect people to not say things, but sometimes they want to vent on a survey or in a meeting, and it shows up. And so how do you protect the privacy of employees in those cases? And that's why a council of some sort at the senior level can really help create guidelines of, let's decide as an organization what kind of stance we have, right? If someone discloses, for example, health information, do we have a process to automatically anonymize that, scrub it, delete it, and so on? If someone discloses something unethical, right? Maybe a manager has violated one of the regulations. Maybe there's something like harassment or bribery going on. What do you do in that case? Right? Well, let's focus on, you know, the kind of think about the best case scenarios, but then also be prepared for the worst case scenarios and have a game plan for that before you deploy anything, so that you know, okay, if someone says something that could become discoverable, then we need to alert our legal team automatically. So for example, that might be your stance, or you just don't turn anything on that creates something discoverable. That could be another stance. But I think organizations need to really think about right now, where are the critical point? Like, how are you going to use all these additional data that you probably didn't have before? And we want to use it for good, but what happens when there's something that you didn't want to hear? What happens when that occurs? How will you protect employees and your company reputation?
Big time.
Governance again.
So it sounds like something that's unique to people data in a way, as opposed to Internet of Things data. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, even that, you have a lot of people data in that too, but machine data, for example, how a
Yes.
machine's running. A difference is we're talking about something beyond governance. We're talking about the kind of things that medical systems engage in, right? That we need to have an ethics panel to
Yes.
be able to protect employees and probably customers and everybody else if we're collecting and analyzing using AI or in any other means personal data of people. We need to look beyond governance to ethics. And when I think about IT organizations, I don't within companies, I'm not, and maybe I'm not thinking right, but that's not language I hear coming up very often. Is how is our IT ethics team looking at this, or how is our corporate ethics team looking at this outside of healthcare? I mean, I'm used to it in healthcare. Oh, and legal, big legal firms too. But outside of those venues, I don't hear the kind of discussion that you're describing very often. Is this a growing area right now for?
Absolutely. Yeah. So within a lot of people analytics teams, the ethics of using people data in general has come up.
Oh,
Again, I think, even if you think about the meeting data I was describing, generally, we will, in an organization, will make a rule of like, we'll only grab the metadata. We'll say, okay, who attended the meeting, how long the meeting was, but we won't look at the content of your email, for example. So maybe that's the line that organizations draw, but that needs to be discussed up front. And the IT organization may or may not care, but when it's applied to their data, they're going to care. So right, you don't want your chat and email being looked at by the company at all times. So even if it's just sort of in the background screening for things. And when I talk to employees too, I think a lot of people either assume that everything they say and do on a work device or on work Wi-Fi can be used against them, possibly that it's being monitored anyways, right?
Yeah.
So there's some people who assume that, and they just, they're very careful with what they say. So that's just their approach. And then on the other hand, we have people who like maybe don't know. They don't think about it. They're not aware. And then they're surprised that they get a nice little email from the compliance department saying, hey, we saw you doing XYZ, or your email is suddenly flagged because you decide to take a picture of your driver's license that has your birthday on it. It's now suddenly sensitive information, right? And all these things. So and you're like, oh, but I just needed it, and I was going to send it to my personal email. It's no big deal. But well, it's going outside the organization and it has sensitive information. That's a no-no. And I think we don't talk about it enough, but certainly this privacy aspect is very real, and I recommend companies communicate how they're going to use the data. Years ago, before GDPR, I will have people say, well, let just mine this data and see what you can find, Serena. Just see what you can find. We're going to collect this data. We'll see what people say. No. You can't do that anymore. You need to have a purpose for everything that you are collecting even beforehand. So, the demographic data, for example, gender, race, age, and so on. What are you going to do with it? And what are the boundaries, and can I opt out of it, right? And I think all these questions didn't really exist or didn't matter as much before, but now with regulations we have to be very careful on how we ask, and it's no longer just collect as much data as possible and see what we can find.
Figure it out later.
Yeah.
So I think it's really again, thinking like practically here, sounds to me like if you decide that in your company you're going to focus on your people data for whatever purpose you decide to focus on your people data, like your very first discussion past what people data you have all over the place, where it's located, is what are we using and why, and how do we communicate it to people? And how do we mitigate things like, okay, maybe I did come to a meeting mad.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe something was said in that meeting. I mean, I can't imagine me mad, right? I'm a nightmare. So like I come to a meeting, I'm mad, and someone says something in that meeting and I say something curt because I'm in my head, because just before I walked in the door, I had a heated debate with, someone who makes me mad constantly. But then all of a sudden it gets tracked against, she's mad in this meeting, but actually I'm mad because somebody confronted me in the hallway that shouldn't have, or like, these are all like open discussions I feel like teams inside of organizations should be having.
Yes.
But like nobody's sales pitch includes, y'all go work out how to not screw your company up while we implement these fabulous AI tools.
Right.
Right. They're going to show up with a tool and say, this is going to gauge all your sentiment, and this is going to change the way you. And then if you didn't have those discussions up front, it could be damaging. It could do the like, you could have people going off, as we would say, half cocked here, into a room being accusatory, trying to solve a problem that was detected that wasn't really related to that at all. So
yeah,
you're going to be a busy person. Like, you could just focus solely on just doing that for companies, just opening up the conversation.
Right. Wait,
Right.
Going to be, Robin?
Or you may already be so busy you can't breathe. I don't know. You're a year in.
Yeah.
You're a year in. Your busy has only just begun.
I see. Okay. I like the forecast.
Yes, the forecast is strong.
I think to your
you
point,
have not
Robin,
seen anything yet.
To your point, you just described every large technology implementation that has ever happened in the history of the universe, right?
On Earth. Yeah.
Someone sells a thing and it's super cool and it does 800 features and it's going to make your whole life different. Your company's going to be amazing. We're going to quadruple your profits. And the company says, oh, wow, that sounds incredible. I'm going to buy that thing and I'm going to implement it. And they spend $1 billion and then they never use it. In the past, it was like, it never gets used properly. It's a complete waste of money, time, investment, et cetera. We're talking about like CRMs and ERPs and all these things, learning management systems, et cetera. The difference now, as you're alluding, it's like, with AI, it can literally destroy. It can cause conflict and things that we're not used to thinking about these large technology systems as creating those kinds of issues, these ethical issues. And so it is like a whole nother level of the same thing that we've seen for decades.
So we have better tools, but our organizational processes haven't improved to begin with. I mean, there's a thing. There's nothing that we can slap on top of all of the things that we didn't bother to look at appropriately in the first place. And so it feels to me like there's a way that we turn around, we blame AI for this because it's just a better tool, but there are things we haven't fixed. There are things we haven't wanted to pay attention to. Nobody's wanted to draw the line around how emails can or can't be used until somebody asked for a total email dump because they were having a lawsuit against the company.
Right.
It gets everybody to write their ethics policies, right?
Right.
As soon as you've been subpoenaed and the CEO is, sending emails to people they shouldn't be, and that's part of the discovery. And it's like, oh, we discovered too much. We need rules. We need policies. We need ethics.
Yeah, why don't we have that 30-day retention turned on again? Right.
I mean, that's the reality of every time I go to an organization and all their policies are in place, I ask them when they got sued, right?
Right.
Isn't that basically the truth? We know this, whether we ask them or not. And so there's nothing about AI that makes companies whose practices aren't quite what they should be better, but there's also this whole new realm of different practices that we need on top of this, and opportunities. I have a friend who's becoming a data ethicist. I just said that right. Yeah. Who's becoming a data ethicist, like right from the get-go. And I'm thinking, wow, will there be a job for you? And it's like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
there's lots of jobs, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. English majors are cool again, didn't you feel?
I love that.
English majors are cool again.
That's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
That's me.
An English major. Love
Yeah,
it.
I didn't realize that was cool, but I'm an English
You
major.
are.
You are cool, Bill. You
You're
are cool.
cool.
Y'all, we're like literally at about time, and I feel like we're just getting started. I have
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
feeling that every time we have a conversation about data, AI, and people, no matter what the label is going to turn around to be data, AI, and people. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I think we're like really on to something with this whole data, AI, and
Yes.
people. So my key takeaways, I know we're going a little bit over, but key takeaways are you got to have data, you got to have people, and AI is going to change the way we do things with some things, but you still have to have data and you still have to have people.
There's a
It's
fourth
replacing
thing.
numbers. Is there a
What's
fourth
the
thing?
fourth thing?
The fourth key takeaway is don't send Otter to a meeting with Robin.
Don't send an otter to my meeting without getting my consent first.
That's
Awesome.
right.
All right, gang. I can't wait to be with you again.
Likewise.
Serena, thanks for joining us
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
another
Check-
fabulous
yeah,
episode.
Check out everyone's courses, please.
Yes,
If
yes.
you have any questions I can answer, feel free to send it my way, and look forward to the next one.
It's awesome. All
Thanks,
right, guys.
Serena.
Thank you.
Thank you for
See you
your
next
work.
time.